Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to a 10 round head to head. No Marquis of Queensberry rules apply here today though. This one is a street fight. Two very similar watches by two arch Japanese rivals, Seiko and Citizen, both big and chunky, both solar powered, both ISO rated, both supplied on rubber straps, both very reasonably priced, and both coming in decidedly street smart colour tones. But you know how this works, there can only be one winner. But before we flip the camera and get into the scoring, the Seiko belongs to me, but the Citizen is on loan. Thumbs up and thank you to a subscriber Paul over in Perth. He loaned me this Citizen, he also previously loaned me his Seiko Coutura, so he's clearly a big fan of Japanese big brand watches. But which big brand will be the big winner today? Let's flip the camera and find out. Okay, so a street fight today between two urban dive watches. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to let that apparent paradox sink in. Right. Moving on then. You can see why I put these two together, can't you? Very, very similar. There's only a couple of millimeters difference between any of the dimensions. The specifications are almost identical and the philosophy behind both of these watches is also identical. They are dive watches from the Promaster and Prospex ranges respectively, but styled for the street. Both watches therefore with a complete appreciation that they are more than capable of getting wet but are highly unlikely to ever see salty water, and that is fine. I think they're both good watches, they're both great value, and they both make very sensible dailies for stylish urban dwellers. So let's have a quick look at each of them individually. Starting with the Citizen, this is the BN0157-11X, catchy as always by Citizen. You don't have to go for this green urban camo look if you don't want to. There are plenty of other Promasters, but this is a very interesting looking one. I think 44mm in diameter, it's sizable. Both watches are sizable today, but only 11.5mm thick. 48.7mm lug to lug is large but manageable. 20mm lug width helps bring it down a bit. Doesn't weigh much, on rubber 93 grams only. So this is a Seiko SNE 533P. This is a tuner from their Street Series range. There are a number of other colour options available. It's larger than the Citizen. It's 46mm in diameter. It's also thicker at 13.2mm thick. Some of that diameter coming from the plastic shroud, of course, as is customary with all of these tuners, but 46mm lug to lug, super compact, it's basically a disc, 22mm lug width, 95 grams, almost identical weight. So then at 10 rounds, two of them double weighted, those being movement and brand, I'll give you a total out of 120 and then a percentage out of 100 underneath that. Usual categories with one new one today, warranty. Interesting, it's hard for me to separate these two, but there is a bit of a gulf between them when it comes to warranty. Both of these are Aussie spec models, Paul's and mine obviously, so we both got Aussie spec warranties. Anyway, let's start, as I like to do, with the price. Citizen gets an 8, the Seiko 1 point more at 9. Pricing these is a little bit tricky because prices do vary wildly depending on where you're buying them from. I know Paul got his from this retailer, currently available at $399 Aussie dollars, but he got it on a sale at $299 Aussie dollars. The cheapest price I could find on the Citizen internationally on eBay at the moment, but shipped straight from Japan, is $216 US dollars. Look, don't pay more than $250 for either of these. They're great watches, but they're not worth more than $250 USD. $216, I think that's a really good price for the Citizen, 8 out of 10. Again, prices on the Seiko vary wildly depending on where you buy it from. eBay best price is higher than the Citizen at the moment at 280 odd US dollars. Here in Australia, they are readily available at 299 AUD. I did find one cheaper though, Watch Depot, 279 AUD. I bought mine from them earlier this year for 220 AUD. But look, let's just take 279, convert that into dollars, and that is 175 USD at the moment. Even if we're looking at cheapest Aussie price for the two, there's still 20 bucks in the favour of the Seiko, hence it scores an extra point, it gets a 9. Alright, movement, double weighted. Both of these are quartz solars, both of them very, very similar in terms of the specifications they offer. I'm giving the Citizen 8 out of 10 though, the Seiko a 9 out of 10 doubled to 18. The Citizen features an EcoDrive module E168, standard quartz tolerances of a maximum variance of plus or minus 15 seconds per month. It has a low charge indicator. The second hand will tick every 2 seconds rather than 1 to let you know it needs some juice. And when fully juiced up, 6 months of charge, meaning you can leave this one in a drawer for 5.5 months, pull it out, and it will still be working. So sensible, these EcoDrives, 8 out of 10. The Seiko though just pips it by one key measure. It's a V157 solar quartz, again very similar, the same tolerances of minus 15 to plus 15 seconds per month, but this one when fully charged lasts up to 10 months. That I reckon is worth an extra point, that gets it a 9. Moving on to warranty. You're buying an affordable daily driver, warranty is important, and it doesn't get better than the warranty offered by Citizen. As I said, Paul and I both bought these local stock from authorised dealers. He got a 5-year warranty with the Citizen. I still did okay with my Seiko. I got a 3-year warranty, but hey, 5 years is awesome on this affordable a watch. Really, you're looking at Tudor or Omega to get 5 years from a Swiss manufacturer. And to get that warranty for $300, awesome. 10 out of 10. Next up, Crystal. Not a long category here because essentially they're both the same. 7 out of 10. Flat mineral crystals with no anti-reflective undercoating on both watches. Seiko, you can call it hardlex, but it doesn't make it hard. 7 out of 10 for both watches. And likewise, an equally brief category discussing water resistance. 9 out of 10 for both. Both of these watches are divers with an apostrophe. That means they're ISO 6425 rated to 200 meters. Again, these are designed for stylish urbanites. Not many people are going to be taking advantage of that, but it's nice to know the capability is there should you require it. 9 out of 10. So 5 rounds down then, and the Seiko is leading by a single point. I told you there really isn't much to pick between these two watches to this point anyway. Let's see if lume makes a difference. And it does. I give the Citizen a 6, but I give the Seiko an 8. Citizen uses Natu Light, Seiko uses Lumi Bright. Again, great for diving, but actually probably just as useful to people who do wear these as dailies and rely on at-a-glance legibility after dark. Initially, both watches look very similar, but when we get to the end of my 20-minute test, I reckon the Seiko is beginning to pull ahead quite distinctly. Indices and hands both more legible than the Citizen. 2 points more legible, it gets an 8, the Citizen a 6. Alright, moving on to dial and hands, and I admit there is a little bit of subjectivity creeps into this score here. I am trying to look at them materially rather than just stylistically, and as such I give the Citizen 6, but again the Seiko 2 more points with an 8. So it may be designed for the city, but it still looks very much like a Promaster, this Citizen. So flat printed dial but with embossed indices, Citizen brand name and EcoDrive Divers 200 just printed on it in black. Date complication down there at the 4 o'clock, plus there is a little bit of lume. They've halved one of those indices and managed to squeeze it in just beyond the date complication. I do find the indices a little bit fussy though with those black chevrons beyond the 4 main ones. And when I zoom in on the handset, they're a little bit drab, they're flat, and they're not all that well finished. You can see some rough edges here. Overall, 6 out of 10. The Seiko though scores an 8. I think the whole dial handset arrangement on the Seiko is much cleaner, much more legible as a consequence. The dial itself has a kind of granular texture, which is nice. You can't see the photovoltaic cell like you could with the Citizen. It's got a colour matched date wheel, which is a really nice touch down there at the 4 o'clock. The indices are cleaner, and the hands are also much nicer. There's a brushed finish to the upper surfaces, and they're all much sharper and much more cleanly cut than the ones on the Citizen. Overall, I like it. 8 out of 10. Okay, we're getting towards the business end now. Seiko seems to be pulling away a little, and indeed it continues to pull away by 1 more point. Bezel and Insert. There's pros and cons to both, but I still give it 1 more point over the Citizen. The Citizen bezel is 60-click unidirectional, not massively grippy though. The way the bezel is integrated into the case means you really need to work those serrated sections at an angle. The action itself is good though. The aluminium insert is a little bit cheap, but it is incredibly legible with big numerals, silver against that green. 7 out of 10 therefore. Now the Seiko bezel is much easier to grip. It is 120 click, unidirectional dive style, and it's a much nicer bezel insert than the simple aluminium one as featured on the Citizen. There's some nice recessed markers, there's some concentric circle work, a recessed loom pip, a raised loom pip, and the action is nicer than the Citizen's, but it's not all that legible. You are sacrificing something for the black and blue look. I'll still give it an extra point though, 8 out of 10. Moving on to the straps, both feature almost identical rubber straps, both get identical scores, 8 out of 10 each. Yeah, look, there's really not much to separate these two. The Citizen one is nice, plenty of perforations, which is something different. 20mm, but there is a bit of flair at the lugs to add an extra bit of visual heft to it. Plenty of perforations at the top end as well, double retainers, and some nice matching IP-coated brushed gunmetal hardware. The Seiko one feels marginally softer in hand, and it has that textured pattern on the upper surface, mimicking the textured pattern on the dial. It also has the great wave at the tip of the tail end. Only a single retainer though, so perhaps not quite the flexibility there, but again, some nice brushed IP coated hardware matching the bezel. 8 out of 10, they're pretty much the same. The final category then, brand. I always double weight brand. Some people agree with that, some people disagree with that. I think if these are aimed at younger urban dwellers, then brand is perhaps legitimately double weighted. I give the Citizen a 7, I give the Seiko a 9 though. Look, Citizen is a great brand, particularly when it is a Citizen Promaster, but I just don't think it quite has the same cachet as Seiko. It's a little bit everyman, it's a little bit Citizen, 7 out of 10 therefore. If you're buying a traditional analog timepiece under $250, I don't think there's a better brand you can put on your wrist than a Seiko. There are plenty of better watches, but I don't think there's a better brand. Better history, better heritage, stronger brand lineup, better sponsorship and advertising presence. They sponsor the V8 supercars over here, for example. And that Prospex X is just a cherry on top, 9 out of 10, double to 18. So where does that leave us? Drum roll please. Well, it leaves us with the result that we've been heading towards since about halfway, to be honest. 91, 76% for the Citizen. Like I said, it is a very solid offering, but 101, 84% for the Seiko. I think that's fair. I think the Seiko is about 10% better than the Citizen in just about every area. Look, if you're a Citizen fanboy, if you're a member of the Citizen faithful, if this colour speaks to you, or if you find one on a great deal like Paul did, go for it. It is still a fantastic watch for the money. You can't go wrong with a Promaster, you can't go wrong with EcoDrive, and you certainly can't go wrong with a 5-year warranty for the price they're charging. But the Seiko is today's winner. I think it looks better, it's nicer finished, it's got drilled lugs, it's got that shroud to protect it, it's got a really easy grip crown, it's got a number of features that I think just move it a little bit ahead of the Citizen, and it's got Seiko on the dial. Like I said, at this price, there is no better brand name that can feature beneath the index at 12. Two great watches, but the winner of today's street fight is the Seiko Tuna. If you like this head-to-head format, why not check out another one? Thanks for making it to the end of this one. I'll see you again in a future video, I hope.